Let me break something down for you. When a man tells you, I'm not looking for anything serious right now, that is not a puzzle. That's not a code you need to crack. That is not an invitation for you to prove your worth or change his mind. That is a complete sentence. That is his truth. And your job is not to question it. Your job is to hear it and act accordingly. But what do so many women do? They hear that line and somehow turn it into hope. Well, maybe if I show him how good I am to him, or he just got out of something tough, maybe he needs time. Listen, I understand the heart wants what it wants, but you've got to be smarter than that. If a man is telling you from the jump that he's not looking for anything serious, he's already telling you where this is going. Nowhere. And see, this is how some brothers operate. They know exactly what to say to keep you around without having to give you what you want. They know you want love. They know you want commitment. And instead of being man enough to walk away and let you find that, they drop this soft little line, I'm just not looking for something serious right now. That keeps you on the hook, hoping, waiting, investing your time and emotions into a situation that is never going to grow. Let me tell you something. A man knows what he wants. I'm not saying we always move fast. I'm not saying we propose in 3 months. But I am saying this. When a man sees a woman who moves his spirit, who feels like peace, who carries herself with class and confidence, he knows. And when he knows, he ain't going to play around. He's going to make it clear. He's going to pursue. He's going to claim. So when a man tells you he's not looking for anything serious, it's not because he doesn't understand what he wants. It's because you're not what he wants in that way, or he's not willing to give you what you deserve. And let's flip the lens for a second. Imagine you're on a job interview. You walk in, dress sharp, resume tight. You sit down, and before you can even get your pitch off, the interviewer says, now, just so you know, we're not looking to hire anybody right now. We're just, keeping resumes on file. Would you stay in that interview? Would you keep talking, trying to convince them to make an exception for you? Or would you say, well, thank you for your time, and walk right back out that door with your dignity? Same thing applies here. When a man says he's not ready, not serious, not sure, that's him telling you this interview ain't leading to a job. So why are you still showing up every day, putting in effort, being loyal, giving your body, giving your time, giving your heart for a position that's never going to open? You know what it really comes down to? Fear. You're afraid that if you leave, maybe he'll change for somebody else. Maybe he'll realize what he had after you're gone. You're afraid you won't find someone better. But let me tell you something. You don't lose by walking away from someone who already told you they don't want you fully. You lose by staying and hoping they'll become somebody they're not even trying to be. I see women all the time putting their hearts on layaway plans, waiting for a man to be ready. Baby, your love is not a future investment. It's not something you just hope matures later. Love should be mutual, it should be present, and it should be active. If it's always someday, then it's not real. It's just a string along. And you know what's really wild? That same man who said he wasn't looking for anything serious, he ends up in a serious relationship 2 months later with somebody else. And you're sitting there brokenhearted, confused, wondering, what did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. You just didn't leave when he told you the truth. You stuck around hoping the truth would change. And the truth doesn't change, but the people we ignore it for always do. You got to stop negotiating with red flags. You have to stop romanticizing potential. He said what he said, and in that moment, your power is in what you do next. Do you stay and try to wait it out? Or do you say, thank you for your honesty, but I'm looking for something real, and I won't waste my heart on uncertainty? Look, I'm not saying he's a bad person for being honest. In fact, I respect the man who's up front. But just because he's honest doesn't mean he's for you. Your standard isn't just honesty, it's alignment. You're not just looking for a truthful man, you're looking for a man whose truth matches your vision. So next time you hear, I'm not looking for anything serious, you look that man in the eye, you smile, and you say, I appreciate your honesty, but I'm not available for confusion. I'm available for love. And then you leave. Walk away with your head high, your heart intact, and your standards untouched. Because if you don't walk away, you're not staying because of love, you're staying because of fear. And love never grows in fear. It grows in clarity, in mutual intention, and in respect. Don't settle for less because you're afraid of being alone. Being alone with peace is better than being together with confusion. If a man ever looks at you and says, you're too emotional, I need you to pause, take a deep breath, and seriously reconsider whether that's someone you should be giving your heart to. Because when a man says that 9 times out of 10, he's not making an observation, he's making an excuse. An excuse to avoid accountability, to dismiss your feelings, to gaslight you into thinking your natural emotional response is a problem. Now let me break it down. See, women are wired to feel deeply. That's a strength, not a weakness. It's your ability to connect, to care, to show up in love with your whole heart. A good man, he sees that, he respects that, he cherishes that. But a man who is immature, manipulative, or emotionally unavailable, he'll take your sensitivity and try to make it sound like it's too much. Why? Because emotions force communication, and communication forces truth. And some men don't want truth, they want peace and quiet, even if it means brushing everything under the rug. So when you bring something up, maybe something he said that hurt you, or something you need to feel more secure, instead of leaning in and listening, he shuts down and throws it back at you. You're too emotional. That's his way of ending the conversation without taking any responsibility. Let me make it plain. That phrase, you're too emotional, is just a lazy man's way of saying, I don't want to deal with what you're feeling right now. It's not about your feelings being invalid. It's about him being unwilling or unable to handle a real woman who knows her worth and demands emotional respect. And let's not pretend this is always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. You might bring up something small. Maybe you felt ignored. Maybe you forgot something important to you. And he sighs, rolls his eyes, and says, why are you making this a big deal? That right there is emotional dismissal. You're not making a big deal out of nothing. You're reacting to something he did. Your reaction is a result, not a problem. But he flips it, makes you feel guilty for even bringing it up. That's how emotional manipulation works. It's solid, it's slow, and it's dangerous. Now look, I'm not saying it's okay to fly off the handle, to scream and curse and throw things. That's not emotion, that's chaos. But expressing your hurt, your concern, your love, your fears, that's human. If a man can't handle that, then he's not ready for a grown woman. He's not ready for intimacy, for partnership, for real love. Because love isn't just date nights and good times. It's about being there through misunderstandings, through missteps, and through those tough conversations that don't feel comfortable but are absolutely necessary. Let me tell you what a real man does. A real man leans in when you're emotional. He listens. He may not always understand right away, but he wants to try. He doesn't shame you for crying. He offers you his shoulder. He doesn't call you dramatic when you express your needs. He tries to meet them. Because love requires emotional labor, and a mature man knows that's part of the job. If he wants the joy of being loved by you, then he also needs to be able to sit with your pain, your doubt, your questions, and not run from them. And if he can't do that, if every time you open up he shuts you down, that's not love. That's emotional starvation. That's you begging for understanding while he throws crumbs of validation your way. And let me be clear, You can't build a relationship where your emotions are seen as threats instead of truths. You'll end up walking on eggshells, doubting yourself, shrinking just to keep the peace. That's not peace. That's prison. Some women stay in those situations because they've been told they are too emotional, maybe by past partners, maybe even by family growing up. But let me remind you of something powerful. Your emotions are messengers. They tell you when something's not right. They guide you toward what you need. When you suppress them to keep a man, you're not just losing your voice, you're losing your compass. So the next time a man tries to label you as too emotional, I want you to remember this. Being emotional isn't your flaw, it's your superpower. It means you care. It means you love deeply. It means you're alive. And if he can't meet you there, if he can't respect the way your heart moves, then he has no business holding it. Never apologize for feeling. Never shrink your soul to fit someone else's comfort zone. If your emotions are too much for him, that only means he's too small for you. Let's talk about something I hear too often. A man says, my ex was crazy. Now listen, I know breakups can be messy. Relationships end for all kinds of reasons. But when a man goes out of his way to paint every single problem in his past on her, when it's always her fault, always her drama, and he's just the innocent, perfect guy who somehow landed in a tornado, you need to raise your eyebrows and pay attention. See, here's the deal. Everybody's got a past. But grown folks who have learned from their past, they own it. They say, we didn't work out, and here's what I learned from that. They reflect, not deflect. But when a man starts a new chapter with you and all he can do is bash his ex, that's not healing. That's a walking red flag. Let me break it down a little deeper. If a man tells you his ex was crazy, and he doesn't give any real context or accountability for his part in the story, he's telling you more about himself than he is about her. Because here's the truth. Nobody ends up in a long-term relationship with someone who's actually unhinged without ignoring a whole lot of warning signs. So either he's not being honest about what really happened, or he's the type of man who likes to play the victim while hiding his own mess behind the scenes. Let me give it to you straight. If his ex was really that bad, ask yourself, why did he stay? Why did he date her for years? Why did he move in with her, maybe even have kids with her, if she was crazy from the jump? You know why? Because most of the time she wasn't crazy. She was probably exhausted, hurt, pushed to the edge, and responding to a man who never made her feel safe, heard, or respected. And I'm not saying there aren't people out there who bring chaos, but even if that's true, a real man doesn't bring that into the next relationship as gossip. He brings it as wisdom. He learns. He grows. He's got emotional maturity, because the man who can't stop talking bad about the woman he used to love, that man hasn't moved on, and he hasn't matured. If he's still angry, still bitter, still telling the same old war stories about what she did and how she acted and how she messed up his life, baby, he's still in that relationship in his head. And here's another layer. When a man constantly calls his ex crazy, that's often a strategy. It's a way to discredit her. So if you ever start to feel the same thing she did, frustrated, confused, neglected, he can say, see, you're acting just like her. That's manipulation. That's control. That's him building a narrative where he's always right, and the women who love him are always unstable. And trust me, if he did it to her, he'll do it to you. You'll start questioning yourself. You'll wonder if maybe you're the problem, and before you know it, you're shrinking, doubting, apologizing for things you didn't do, all because you didn't listen when he showed you early on that he refuses to be accountable. You've got to understand something. A relationship is a mirror. You learn about yourself and the other person at the same time. And a man who can't look in the mirror and say, here's where I went wrong, is a man who will never grow. He'll keep repeating the same patterns, hurting people, blaming them, and calling them crazy to avoid the truth that maybe he's the common denominator. So what do you do when a man tells you his ex was crazy? You listen, sure, but then you ask, what did you learn from that relationship? Watch his answer. If all he's got is bitterness and no reflection, that's your cue, that's your sign to walk away. Because let me tell you, the way a man talks about his ex says everything about how he'll talk about you when things get rough, and things will get rough. Love ain't always easy, but if you want to build something real, you need someone who's emotionally mature enough to face the past without dragging it through the future. A good man doesn't need to tear down another woman to lift you up. He doesn't need to poison your view of someone else just to make himself look better. A good man lets the past be the past, and he focuses on building something healthy in the present. So if he keeps calling his ex crazy, believe this. You're not just hearing his version of the story, you're getting a preview of your own future if you stay too long. Protect your peace, your heart, and your mind. Don't inherit someone else's unresolved mess. You deserve a man who's healed, who's grown, and who's ready to take full responsibility for the past, the present, and the love he gives to you. If a man ever says to you, why do you always need to talk about everything, or something similar like, can't we just drop it? Or you're making a big deal out of nothing. That's a huge red flag. You need to pay attention. Because here's the thing, communication is the lifeblood of any healthy relationship. It's the key to resolving misunderstandings, to growing together, and to building trust. And if a man is shutting you down every time you try to communicate your needs, concerns, or emotions, that's not a relationship, that's a power struggle. See, communication isn't just about talking, it's about listening. A real man doesn't run from a conversation just because it's uncomfortable. He faces it head on, even when it's tough, even when it means admitting he was wrong or that he made a mistake. A man who loves you will be there to listen, not dismiss you, not belittle you, not act like your thoughts and feelings aren't worth his time. But when you hear a man say, why do you always need to talk about everything? It's his way of trying to shut you down. It's his way of trying to avoid accountability, trying to make you feel like you're the problem for wanting to express yourself. And let me tell you something, when a man does this, he's not trying to protect you or save you from a fight or drama, no. What he's doing is avoiding the real issue. He's avoiding the growth that could come from that conversation. He's avoiding the truth. Now, I know a lot of women get frustrated because they feel like they're always the one initiating the conversations. They feel like they're the ones always trying to get to the bottom of things, always trying to make things right. And I get it. But here's what I need you to understand. It's not a problem that you want to talk. It's a strength. It shows that you care about the relationship. It shows that you're not willing to sweep things under the rug and pretend everything is okay when it's not. You're looking for clarity, for connection, and that's the way it should be. But if you're with a man who consistently shuts you down every time you try to communicate, what's really happening is he's trying to control the narrative. He wants you to ignore the things that matter to you, to sweep your concerns under the rug so that he doesn't have to face the reality of what's wrong in the relationship. He wants peace on his terms, and that peace often comes at the cost of your emotional well-being. And listen, this isn't about arguing or fighting all the time. I'm not saying that you need to have deep, serious talks every single day. But when something matters to you, when something's on your heart, when you're feeling hurt, confused, or just needing some clarity, it's your right to bring it up. You're not asking for permission to feel what you feel, and a man who truly respects you will make space for that. He'll want to understand, he'll want to find a solution, and he'll want to communicate honestly even when it's hard. But when a man refuses to talk about things, when he doesn't want to engage, when he keeps brushing you off and making you feel like your concerns are too much, that's a man who's emotionally unavailable. That's a man who doesn't value emotional intimacy. is the foundation of trust, of mutual respect, of real connection. So what do you do when a man says, why do you always need to talk about everything? You stand firm. You don't apologize for wanting to communicate. You don't shrink back. You don't start questioning if you're being too much, because you're not. Wanting to communicate your needs and feelings is normal, it's healthy, it's a vital part of making a relationship work. If you're met with resistance every time you try to have a real conversation, that's a sign that this man is more invested in keeping things easy or keeping things the way he wants them than in truly building a strong, honest partnership with you. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, well, maybe he's just avoiding confrontation. Maybe he doesn't want to fight. And sure, there are some men out there who hate conflict. But there's a difference between avoiding conflict and avoiding communication altogether. A man who avoids talking is avoiding connection, not conflict. He's avoiding the effort that it takes to create something real with you. And what's worse is that over time, when you keep letting this behavior slide, you begin to believe the lie. You start thinking you're the one who's too sensitive, too demanding, too much. You start questioning your own needs. But let me tell you something. Your needs are valid. Your voice matters. Your feelings are important. Never let a man convince you that wanting to talk through your issues is a problem. The real problem is that he doesn't want to engage in a real conversation. And that's a sign of immaturity, not a lack of love. So listen, the next time a man says, why do you always need to talk about everything? I want you to ask yourself, do I want to be with someone who can't communicate with me? Do I want to be in a relationship where my feelings don't matter enough to be heard? Because real love, real commitment, it's about having the tough conversations, the vulnerable moments, and working through the hard stuff together. It's not about shutting each other down. It's about lifting each other up, even when it means confronting the uncomfortable things. Don't ever let someone convince you that your need for communication is a flaw. It's not. It's the strength of your character and the depth of your love. If he can't respect that, then you're better off alone than in a relationship where your voice is silenced.